What is your self-love journey? Like if you're opening a book of like your self-love journey, where would you put the pin in and like and say like this is where it started?
Throughout like my whole childhood, I feel like I did not know who I was. I feel like I didn't know where I fit into this world, and I feel like I cared a lot about those specific things. Who I was, like what I was supposed to do, like if I were to fit in, like just being liked and kind of just being more concerned with like others' opinions of me than like my own opinion of myself. Just school in general was such a hard time for me in so many ways. I feel like I really didn't know who I was. I really lacked a lot of confidence. I was really hard on myself for so many things, and I compared myself a lot. And comparison, of course, is like the thief of joy. So that's a lot of the things that I used to do was, wanting to be like specific girls. And I feel like that's where it started in a lot of ways. As I started to lose weight, I kind of feel like I became more confident in myself for the first time. And it's sad that I feel like that my weight and what I looked like had to be the defining factor of like me, loving myself. But I do feel like in that specific time period, I guess that like hatred I had towards my body or what it looked like or feeling like I needed to look a certain way or being self-conscious, when that was gone, I feel like I really started to get to know like who I was as a person. And I was surrounded by like people at the time who I felt like also kind of lifted me up and encouraged me to love myself. A significant amount of my self-love journey has definitely happened in like that time since.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for being on the Self-Love Archives podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And honestly, I feel like you've actually played such a significant part in my own self-love journey. So I feel like it's just kind of like a perfect, place to be is on your podcast talking about self-love.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. What is your self-love journey? Like, where did it really begin for you?
My boyfriend, I feel like he's played a really large part in it for a lot of the time. A lot of people see me in different ways, but I feel like my boyfriend sees me in like the best light possible. That also helped me kind of realize like the really great things about myself and the things that I should be loving about myself.
There's this like paradox between how we love ourselves is through how other people see us or how other people love us. And you talked about like the girls in high school or in school that, may have not cared about who you are or who you truly are besides like what you look like on the outside versus your boyfriend now who really sees all of these parts and pieces of you. I always love to bring up the saying because I hate the saying. It's like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And I think it's so untrue and such a flawed statement because it
Yeah.
really, words really do affect us and how and it's not just like how someone treats us, right? Or how someone physically treats us. It's how someone like speaks about us, talks to us in so many different ways. And that can really have a positive or a negative reflection on who we are as a person. Of course, at the end of the day, we should love ourselves exactly as as we are, all the bits and pieces, everything on the inside, everything on the outside, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, whatever it may be. But it's interesting that the outside world has some sort of like effect on that and how that can really change how we love ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. Our first introduction to ourselves is through almost the eyes of others a lot of times. Children, not, we're still getting to know ourselves. Like growing up, being a teenager, I feel like even into being a young adult, I've only maybe in the past, 5 years, I could say, is like when I would say I've really felt like I know who I am. And like, if that version of me met me today, like I would be completely shocked about how much confidence that I do have. I feel like I started content creation back in like 2016, 2017, and like that came out of a time of like one of the hardest periods of my life. because I was sexually assaulted my freshman year in college. So after that, like my early 20s, like last years of being a teenager, early 20s, were living in just such a state of trauma and such a state of survival that trying to get to know myself and trying to love myself was made that much harder. Many people go to college and like, you know, that's their first time having this freedom and like getting to know themselves. And like you also have to deal with this while trying to find yourself, while trying to graduate college. I turned to creating content in that time period. It was like right after around when I graduated. It was kind of around the same time. I feel like I was finally done with school and I didn't know what I wanted from my life. I felt like I just spent the past, 4 years at that point just trying to make up lost time in my education and like still graduate on time, because then when I was finally done, I didn't know what was next. And I was in a similar time period, I guess, that I'm in now, except now it's just a little bit less traumatic and a little bit more happy. But I turned to content creation as like a form of self-expression. It was kind of a kickstart of me realizing like how capable I was of doing whatever I wanted to, and how capable I am of, if I put my mind to something, that like I can do it, I can figure it out, and like I can succeed. When you started kind of shifting away from beauty to more lifestyle and your self-love content, I feel like that's when I really was just like, I felt so like related to everything that you were saying and like all the things that you would speak about. I feel like you made me feel comfortable in my body, especially because in between that weight loss period that I had talked about, and now I like corporate America really stresses you out sometimes. I gained a lot of weight and I had a really tough time from going to like the smallest version of myself and like kind of like gaining that weight back, but like not being that person I was the first time I was around that weight. With that, it was such a challenge to feel like I don't have to hate my body the way that it is. And I feel like a lot of your content and kind of like going through almost a similar situation like really helped me love who I was and not feel like my worth or my self-love needed to depend on what it looked like.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. I think I literally went through basically the same thing in regards to my weight too. I was at just like a very, very fit, like healthy weight and body, and like was feeling very confident about myself. From there, in like early 2021, I got super sick all the time, like consistently, like back to back to back to back to back. It just took my body on a roller coaster. And during that time, the only thing that changed in my life before I got sick was that I switched to a different birth control. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, huh, interesting. Did not feel like myself at all. And that was when I kind of put my foot down and was like, I'm going to completely come off of all medication, all birth control, like, and do nothing because I want to know exactly who I am. I made all these choices because I was just, for me personally, I was just trying to really get to the root of learning and knowing exactly who I am. Like that was around the same exact time that I was making a shift to be more intentional with what I was putting out into the world and what I was sharing. So it wasn't just what I was putting out, it was what I was putting in too. So it was like what I'm putting
Yeah.
into my body and what I'm putting out into the world, what's coming from my body. So being more intentional in both of those ways really, I think, kicked off a significantly different part of my self-love journey. And it's so interesting to see like how it impacted other people's self-love journey as well. Just coming to this place of being truly and irrevocably like yourself and not
Yeah.
questioning that.
You are like a testament to why it's important for some of our like creators to come out and really live their most authentic versions of themselves, but also be showing kind of like all of like the good, the bad, the in between, being authentically yourself. You've inspired so many people, me included, and it's been so helpful for me and my journey to really like love myself and like even kind of explore a lot of the content that I was like creating, because that helped me love myself unapologetically. That
Hmm.
inspired me to kind of, you know, make a shift into exploring what type of content I can create.
I mean, creating content is such an incredible outlet.
One of the things that I feel like I've been struggling recently with is believing in myself. And I told my therapist that I feel like I have two different versions of myself, like inside my head. And there's one where I feel like it's like the true me, like the like just my soul, like the core version of myself. And then obviously the version of myself that has, you know, picked up all these limiting beliefs from life experiences, words from other people, whatever. Believing in myself has been like one of the things that I feel like I really felt challenged by recently. And I feel like that's where, you know, content creation has also helped me a ton, is doing it despite how uncomfortable it might be. I feel like it's almost a form of rejection therapy in a lot of ways, especially like when I talk about, or this topic of my content is something that most people probably wouldn't publicly talk about on social media or show. Um,
Hmm.
or even filming in public, I feel like that too can be like a little bit of like rejection therapy, but I feel like it builds this kind of like mental strength and like mental resilience,
Hmm.
to, I feel like, others' opinions of you. Creating content and being my most authentic and vulnerable version of myself on social media, even in those moments where I'm not super confident about posting what I'm about to post, but I do it anyways, it kind of like builds that self love. It builds that confidence. It
Hmm.
builds that resilience. That really is rejection therapy. It's like whatever anyone's opinion like doesn't matter, because like you're doing something that you even like are doubting in the moment, or might not feel 100% comfortable in the moment, or you're worried about what people are going to think, what people are
Hmm.
going to say, what comments you might get, and then you do it anyways. And I think that is kind of like the best way to grow as a person, is doing the things you're scared of doing anyways.
I was gonna say this before, like when we're younger, like people start to, like adults and other people start to give us who we are. Like that
Yeah.
comment, like, oh, you have such big, beautiful eyes. Like, oh, you have such beautiful long hair, or you're this, you're that, whether it's positive or it comes off positive or negative to you, you know, either way, like it's those are like the constant almost affirmations that we're told, that if we're not telling ourselves something, then we're just going to be hearing what everyone else is saying
Yeah.
to us, affirmation, you know, wise. And we're just going to start to believe that rather than creating our own narrative of affirmations of what we truly need to believe. So a great example, one of my really good friends, she's so incredibly smart, right? But that was the affirmation she was given, like for most of her entire life. Like, oh, you're so smart. Oh, you're so
Mm-hmm.
intelligent. You're gonna have such a great job one day. Like everything revolving around her intelligence. She was working on some like therapy things and wanted to ask all of her friends some adjectives of who she is, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, you're intelligent, you're smart, you're sensitive, like all of these things. And I remember her saying to me, like, thank you so much for, you know, telling me that I'm for validating and saying that I'm beautiful, because I feel like my whole life people have just told me that I'm intelligent and that I'm smart, and like that's it. She's like, I am so many other things besides intelligent. I am so many other things besides just smart and capable. Am I also pretty? Like, am I also beautiful? So I think it's so important for us to also give ourselves affirmations
Yeah.
beyond what other people say that you are.
Well, I do think validation and seeking validation is absolutely a normal thing. I think it's only human to seek validation and be like, no, I'm not crazy, right? But I feel like if you're
Yeah.
not able to also validate yourself, like that's the most important part of things, is like you need to be able to validate yourself. Like you need to not rely on validation from other people to believe it yourself.
Yeah,
You're
and
giving
you're
it like,
giving too much power to other people by only seeking validation from other people or outside sources beyond yourself. It is totally okay to like go to my friend and be like, "Do I look okay?" And like you said, like, "Am I crazy?" It's totally
yeah,
okay, I think, to seek out validation from other people and other things, but to only seek out validation from other people and other things, and to give everyone else the power to tell you how you're feeling or about yourself
yeah.
is a little scary. You're kind of just like, here, take the power, tell me how to feel, what to be, who I am. It's mm-mm. But what you said about the moment when you were in college, I think early in college, in the beginning of like your college career, what I know you said it was a bit of a struggle. What was that struggle that led you to where you are?
Towards the end of high school, I just wanted to like get out. And I had gotten into Penn State. I decided that I wanted to go for the summer, get a head start on credits, kind of just get like accustomed. My brother had done the same thing and he loved it. So I felt like it was a really good way to kind of make that transition a little bit easier
Mhm.
because it was a lot less people, just a little bit easier to like kind of acclimate to like that college environment. And I had an amazing summer. I feel like my summer there was the only true college experience I feel like I got to have. Like going from the summer session into freshman year was super challenging. During that time, like we were all split into different dorms where during the summer we were in the same dorm, and so it became like a interesting dynamic to try to like almost reacclimate to college and of course like fitting in and finding, where you belonged. And a lot of my friends I had made had joined sororities. I rushed. And honestly, that was probably one of the most challenging things to go through in terms of self esteem and confidence because you're kind of just being faced with rejection from like just peers, like especially female peers. So it's like all of these girls are essentially rejecting you and saying like you're not good enough to be friends with us. And back then, I was absolutely devastated because I ended up dropping, not getting into like a sorority, and I think I felt like at the time that defined who I was, and I felt my confidence was completely shot. I felt so unworthy. I felt so rejected and not accepted, and kind of felt like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I not likable? Like, why was I not good enough? Was I not pretty enough? And it just had me questioning like so many aspects of who I am and like who I was. In hindsight, I'm so glad that that wasn't my college experience. I don't know. I feel almost more confident in a lot of ways that I didn't join a sorority, like getting through that rejection and coming out on the other side and like feeling like a confident person regardless. It's like, oh, I didn't need those girls. I didn't need that validation in order to, feel the way I feel about myself now, which is all the things I wanted to
Yeah.
feel back then. That was a hard aspect.
When I just think of sororities, it's like you look at the surface level of all of these girls having the opportunity to be friends with each other. But then you dig deeper into it and you're taking out the individuality of each of these girls by making them wear the same color or the same bow or the same shoes or the same outfit. That's first off. Then you're taking away you're basically saying that the only way that you can be a part of this friend group is if you pay money to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's that one is like a little iffy because of course like in any sort of community setting, like I go to this really amazing gym and I pay to go to that gym, but someone's offering me a service when I go to that
Yeah.
gym. I'm
Yeah.
getting something in return. So I think it's really dependent on like which sorority, which school, which place. What are you actually getting in return? Are you just getting that friendship in return? Or are you actually getting like something in return for that
Yeah.
money that you're providing? Are you getting housing? Like what are you actually getting? And then you have the other part of it where of course, like there's so much talk about like hazing and all of this. It's the way that it comes off in my head is you're paying to be a part of this community to validate your worthiness.
Yeah.
By making sure that you follow these rules, these standards, and these specifics in order to be a part of it. When it baffles my brain. Like when my sister was rushing and like going through that whole process, I was like, my poor sweet sister is driving some dumb girls around as their chauffeur so that they don't have to pay for an Uber.
Yeah.
So that they could go get shit-faced.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What? And then everybody's like, "Oh, it looks so good on your resume." I was like, if anybody ever came to me as a business owner, as a boss, and tried to highlight that they were in a sorority, I would literally say, "Turn around and leave." Tell me an experience about being in a sorority that sets you apart from everyone else in that community, or leave. Because I don't think that there's, I don't know, I'm very like anti-sorority, clearly. Like you got me on a little roller coaster here. Like I think that they do nothing good.
Yeah.
Maybe from a charitable perspective, great, amazing, wonderful. But from a perspective of being your own person, being your own, like just coming into like your own individuality and truly loving yourself, I think that a sorority could absolutely ruin that in so many different ways for men and women. For men and women, because it's just so many of the stories that I've heard, even the ones that say that they're good, it never has come off as like, yeah, I want you to, we want you here because we want you here.
Yeah.
It's never like we want Amanda to be a part of this community because we love Amanda for who she is. Yeah. It's more like, let's be picky about who we want to be a part of this community because of what they look like, because of who they are, because of what they act like. It's honestly more sad than anything. And I have not, to this day, heard one good story about someone who's been in a sorority. Even the friends that I've had that were in sororities, they had very few friends from those sororities. They had like, and that's really all that people have taken from it. But I think that if we were to really dive deeper into any of that, it would just, like you said, like potentially ruin your college experience. It would potentially ruin your self-esteem. It would ruin your individuality of who you are. So I'm grateful that they didn't want you a part of it, because it probably shaped you into becoming like the best fucking version of yourself.
Yeah. I think it definitely helped shape me, and I feel like not needing that validation. I think every sorority is different, and I feel like I can't speak to like every sorority because it depends on the school, the size of the sorority. I feel like at the time Greek life was decently big. Honestly, I'm not up to date, but like I feel like now it's not for some reason.
Unless you're down south. I feel like it might be bigger like down south still.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have like those girls just starting college like come up on my feed, and I'm just like, oh, why? Like if someone, I think the biggest part for me is like if someone told me to wear black, I would wear white. That's the kind of like rebellious soul I am. I'm like, don't tell me what the fuck to wear. Yeah, don't tell me how to act. Don't tell me how to dress. I am the epitome of that person. I'm the epitome of that person that's like, if you tell me I can't do something, I will literally say to your face, watch me.
You know, like back in the day when your mom was like, take the trash out, and you were like halfway taking the trash out, and you're like, well, now I don't want to take it out.
Well, now I'm going to leave it here, and I'm not going to take it out.
I wouldn't change anything that's ever happened to me. Like good, bad, ugly, I feel like I wouldn't have changed anything. I think with college, I feel like I did not get the college experience that I feel like most people do. And there's so many times you can kind of what if yourself to death and like what if I did end up in a sorority, what if I did go to a different college, like what my experience would have been like. Like there's definitely some things that I feel like I would have wanted. Like I would have loved to been able to study abroad in college and things like that. But there's just like a certain level of acceptance I feel like you have to have towards the things that happen to you in life. And
You can't
um,
go back and change it. So,
you can go back and change it, and you can only do as much
yeah.
as within your power to like create the life that you like want to live. And
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think towards like the end of your college like career really pushed, I know you said that you kept trying to, I guess, like finish college. What kept pushing off the finish date?
my first like full semester there, towards the end of it, like during finals week, like right before finals, was when I was sexually assaulted. So I ended up withdrawing from college at the end of the semester before finals even happened. So that whole semester essentially kind of was a wash. The next semester I was home. Then the next year I went back, lived off campus. I got my dog. And I feel like that year was better, but still challenging. I was still trying to find friends because by the time rush happened, you're probably like a month and a half, 2 months into the semester already, where the girls who joined sororities, and I felt like I didn't have a place at all. Like I felt I
Hmm.
wasn't in a sorority. All the people who didn't want to join sororities kind of have their cliques already, and I felt like extremely alone at the time. And so when I returned, I felt very similarly. Like I still felt like super alone. Like I was again kind of trying to find my place where I
Yeah.
belonged, like trying to feel normal in such an abnormal time in my life. Like I was still very much processing what had happened to me. I like got there and I remember going to the university medical center essentially and seeing a therapist, and I like had said I was like I can't stay here. I like just knew I was so miserable there and so unhappy being there, and like I wanted to love it so much because I loved it when my brother was there. I loved visiting him. I loved the very like college atmosphere and like the football games and the college town, and I really wanted to love college and love being there and love my experience
Hmm.
there, but I hated it. I
Hmm.
hated that place. I felt like I didn't fit in with the people there. I felt I just was so unhappy, and I like called my mom up again and was like I can't, like I couldn't picture a scenario where I would have been able to survive that semester or that year. And my mom came, packed me up, and I went home. And I ended up just joining like my university's online campus because I picked a major, picked a path that was like the shortest to graduation essentially. Like I felt like at the time I was like I don't even know what I want to do. I don't care about, you know, graduating with what I intended to graduate with. Like I just want to graduate. I just want to get a college degree and be done with this. And so even though there was 3 full semesters that I had 0 credits for, like I graduated basically almost only a semester late. I think of course there are parts of me that I feel like saddened that I didn't get a college experience, but again, I feel like it would not change anything that's ever happened to me just because it's every single thing I've ever done, everything that's ever happened to me has just led me to who I am now and where I am now. And I feel extremely proud of the person that I've become and the person I'm becoming. And I think that's just, I think the most important thing. I think that's what life is like really about is just continuously learning to like love yourself and your life despite what obstacles and challenges you're faced because we're just not here for a long time, and anything that we go through is meant to teach us something. So that's what I fully believe.
Yeah. What would you say to college Amanda during the worst, one of the worst days or worst times or worst periods of college? What would you say to her?
I feel like I'm gonna cry because time of my life, like that was such a hard time of my life in so many ways. Like I was a shell of a person at that time,
Mhm.
just trying to like make it through. Um, but I would tell that version of myself like how proud I am because despite Because like I look back at it sometimes, and at the time it didn't seem like a crazy thing to do, but when I look back at it now, I'm like, holy shit, like you went through something unspeakable, something that unfortunately is way too common that it is, something
Mm-hmm.
incredibly traumatic. Like the amount of resilience I think as a woman that I showed throughout that whole part of my life, like despite the majority of the weight that I'd gained had been after my sexual assault, and I felt like it very much was some sort of like protective, almost like defense mechanism in a way. Like I felt like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like if I was in a less desirable body that I would be safer. At that time, I was going through so much, and I still managed to graduate and really like made it through. Like I really was resilient through all that, even though I felt like the weakest version of myself. Like now I look back on it, I'm like, no, that was probably one of the strongest versions of yourself because you were going through so much, and yet you like woke up the next day and pushed through. And it took a really long time to get to the other side of things, but you got to the other side of things, and that is an accomplishment in itself.
Would you say that you believe in her?
I do.
Full circle.
I do believe in her. I need to believe in her because if I can't believe in her, like who's gonna believe in her? Who's gonna believe in me if
And
I
I
can't
think
believe in myself?
it's so important too to like look at like where like how far you've come and like where you've gotten to this point. Even if right now in this point in your life like you wish certain things were different, certain things were better, or you expected more, you still are so much better of a person and you have grown so much more than who,
Mhm.
you know, Amanda was in college.
Yeah, I think it's so easy, especially with social media, especially like with everything. We're constantly seeing like the highlight reel of people's lives, and I think it's so
Mm-hmm.
easy to compare. It's so easy to wish your life was different. It's so easy to wish that you had certain things or you were more like a certain person. One of those corny cliche sayings, but you really have to learn to love your journey and love the journey and not the
You
destination of
do.
like
You
there,
do.
because it's so easy to be like, oh, I want this, I want this, like I wish my life looked like this, and like whatever. And just because those things aren't in your current present moment right now doesn't mean that they're not going to be in your future. Enjoying the process of all of it is, I feel like it's really what I've tried to focus on is learning to be present, because that's so hard sometimes. Learn to love this present moment.
100%. And it even goes to say like living in the present and like actually enjoying the journey that you're on. It's as we said before, like you're gonna constantly, if you're not actually living in the present and you're not enjoying the journey, like you're just gonna be constantly chasing something that you're never
Yeah,
gonna catch up to. Because I don't really
yeah,
believe that there is a destination. Like you're not gonna wake up
yeah.
one day and say, "Oh, I love myself." Like it's
No
never gonna feel
destination.
that way. Yeah, like it's never gonna feel that way. Like you're gonna wake up some days and you're not gonna like what you see. You're gonna wake up some days and life's just gonna be different. Like things always are changing, and
Yeah.
there are the destination is almost like infinity. It's really just about enjoying like life and as you said, like enjoying life and enjoying the process and enjoying the journey that you're on right now. If you don't enjoy the journey, if you don't live in the present, if you don't choose to love yourself right now, you're always going to be chasing something.
Mhm.
You're always going to be chasing something. Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you to the moon
Thank you
and
so much
back.
for having me.
Of course, of course. And thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you in 2 weeks. We post a new episode every single Sunday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, bi weekly. So I will see you very soon. And thank you, Amanda, for being here once again.
Thanks, Jules.